Hey, true believers, it's D over at the Epitome of Geekdom bringing you the non-spoiler review for Avengers Age of Ultron. I am literally recording this, there's that word again, minutes after leaving the movie theater. Just got done watching Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, I know that the movie did leak earlier this week. There was a chance for me to watch it a few times. I chose to wait and see it in the movie theater with an audience, and I'm going to be giving you my non-spoiler review here on this film. So, what we know and what's based on the trailer, if you haven't seen the film, is of course the Avengers are back together and they have to face off against Ultron, the living automaton, if you know about the comics, who deems that humanity is not worthy of survival and thus tries to wipe out humanity, and it's up to the Avengers to stop him. So, if you are a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and you're one of those people that always goes to see these movies, you go see every single one of them, I don't have to tell you that you're going to go see this one, especially because this is a big one. So, you know, you're going to go see it. There's no sense in me even, talking about, whether or not you should see it. You're going to see it. Now, I'm pretty sure that even the casual fans are going to go see this movie because of the Avengers brand and how much money Avengers 1 made previously. Now, a lot of the casuals that might be watching this are probably wondering, okay, what Marvel movies do I need to see to watch this movie? In other words, if you haven't seen all of the MCU films or even the television shows, you might be wondering, okay, which movies do I need to see? You don't really need to see anything because they do bring you up to speed. Obviously, it's better that you watch all of them, but if you can't for whatever reason, I do recommend primarily checking out Thor: The Dark World, especially the post-credit scene. The post-credit scene for Captain America 2 is also important because they all built to this, as well as I do recommend seeing Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy is not a required view, however. It's recommended, but you could actually watch Guardians after this movie, and you might actually understand Guardians a little bit better because of certain things that happen. So, again, non-spoiler review. Like the film a lot. There are some pacing issues with this movie, though. The first act, I feel, is very, very fast. It just goes by way too fast. I feel like the film's I say the first act, the first half of the movie, I felt like the film was paced very jarringly in the sense of, the first act kind of establishes the team, and then, the events begin that leads into the creation of Ultron, and I felt like that was a little bit too rushed. I felt like as you progress through the film, you tend to understand Ultron's motivations as a character, but I also feel like that should have been explained a little bit better in Act 1 to kind of make the audience understand. The same thing goes for the two new characters, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, which did not get, I don't feel they got very much character development, but one of the problems when you're making a film that has a time limit like 2 hours and 10 minutes or 2 hours or 20 minutes is that you really can't tell that much of an origin story when you have an ensemble cast. I almost feel like maybe they should have told their story separately, maybe in one of the TV shows or somewhere else. Not necessarily a must, but I felt like we didn't really grow attached to those characters until later on, late in the second act, I think is when we really got attached to those characters. Again, though, it's not that bad. It's not really a major issue, but just be prepared that the first act just goes by really quickly. The second act is a little disjointed. A lot of stuff happens. A lot of characters kind of go their separate ways, and then the third act, everything comes together. The good things is that the third act of the film is fantastic. In fact, the entire second half of the movie is just incredible. Just unbelievable. I would actually go so far as to say that the second half of this film is probably the best second half of any Marvel cinematic movie. And there are a lot of similarities to Guardians of the Galaxy. So if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, be prepared for a very similar formula here. A little bit more serious, but the formula's there. Now, one of the things I was looking forward to most about this film was the character of Ultron. If you are familiar with the comic books, you know that Ultron's big, gimmick is that he is a machine who has a god complex, a machine who, in the comics, it's a little different in the comics because of the way these films are structured. In the comics, it's different because he actually has an Oedipus complex. In the comics, it was Ant-Man who created him. The original Ant-Man Hank Pym created Ultron, and Ultron has hatred for Hank Pym and kind of has like a somewhat of a crush on the Wasp. And so in this movie, because Tony Stark is primarily the creator of Ultron, that kind of carried over. But I didn't think it was that. I didn't think it was as strong as it was in the comics, but again, we're talking about literature versus a film. However, James Spader did do a fantastic job. Ultron was very unique as a villain, very different, and I'm hoping that they bring the character back. Not a spoiler or anything for the movie. I just hope that at some point they do bring Ultron back. I don't know if they ever. They probably won't, but very good stuff. Every character in the film kind of got time, but the big thing, like the big note, like I said in the previous video, the big change is that in this film, Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye and Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow really got a lot of screen time, especially in the sense that they don't have their own movies like Thor and Iron Man and Cap do, so they needed to get that screen time. Lots of character development for Hawkeye. You really get to know Hawkeye a lot better in this movie, significantly better. And, of course, as you may have guessed by the trailer, there is somewhat of a budding romance between Bruce Banner and Black Widow. There's some very interesting backstory about both those characters, both Scarlett Johansson's character and Jeremy Renner's character, that we did not get in the Avengers. The original Avengers film, it was kind of just they were there. He was a bad guy for half the movie, but in this film, you really saw a lot more of them as people, which is a good thing. And they definitely scaled back on the character development for Tony Stark and for Captain America, for Steve Rogers. Not that much character development, but again, they've both had 3 movies. The third Cap is coming out next year, but they've had plenty of movies to kind of establish themselves. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them scaling that back. Thor, not too much development there, but he does have his own little adventure in the second act, so there you go. Overall, the visual effects in the film were incredible. Much like Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers 1, it was a large-scale production with a large final battle that was very different from the final battle in the first Avengers. Not too much different, but there were differences. And I felt like it just, the 2 big sequences in this film, and there were a lot of action sequences. There were probably 3 major action sequences in each act. Each act had its own action sequence. The second act, of course, and this is not really a spoiler if you saw the trailer, is the Hulk Iron Man battle with the Hulkbuster armor in the city. Amazing visuals. Just, it was almost as if it was, I don't even know how to even explain. It was just over the top comic book. And that's the thing about this movie. This movie, more so than any of the other Marvel movies, I feel like this movie is the most like the comic, in the sense of it felt like a living comic book. It really did. Kind of like how Spider-Man 2 felt. Remember that? Very similar. So I would say that. And also the third act, of course, is the big finale, which you don't have to understand, or you don't have to worry about spoilers to understand that all these movies have the big finale. But that is one thing that I am actually a little critical about, is that a lot of these films are starting to come off very formulaic, in that they have kind of a similar, again, formula, right? I'm hoping that with Ant-Man, because it's focused on just 1 or 2 characters, it's going to go back to kind of it being a personal story and not having it be this big ensemble team battle at the end, which again, I love it. I mean, it was a great sequence, amazing. Again, probably the best second half of any Marvel movie thus far. But I also like how with Captain America, the Winter Soldier, it was much more enclosed and much more personal. And I'm hoping Ant-Man kind of goes back to that because you do have to even it out. Because I feel personally that the final battle here was very, very similar to the one in Guardians of the Galaxy. So, anyways, check the movie out. You're going to enjoy the film. The second half is amazing. And all I'm going to say is this. The mid-credit scene was my favorite part of the movie. Mostly because the character featured in that scene is one of my favorites. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil it. But I will have a spoiler review up on this channel as well here shortly. I'm recording this one first. So go check the movie out. Joss Whedon's final Marvel movie, apparently, if you've been following the interviews. He definitely went out with a bang. Where would I rank it among my Marvel movies? I'm going to rank it like second or third. It's a toss-up between this one and Avengers 1. But actually, you know what? I kind of like this one a little bit more. I really did like this one a little bit more. This may be my favorite. I have to really go back and think about it. I have to really think and rewatch them all over again. Iron Man 1, of course, is a classic, and Guardians of the Galaxy was great. That one's another one in the top 3. So, all right, well, that's it for this video, and thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll catch you down the road.